Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday. I'm a day behind. Let's do a verse. Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 10. The mountains saw thee, and they trembled. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep uttered his voice and lifted up his hands on high. The prophet Habakkuk is describing a prophecy. He's speaking a prophecy that God gave him. He goes into detail of God moving across the land. Imagine the mountains saw God and they trembled. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep, the very deep of the ocean, uttered his voice and lifted up his hands on high to the presence of the Lord. Just like when Jesus was asleep in the boat and the waters were raging, the winds were blowing, and the disciples were afraid. And they woke him up and like, Master, don't you care if we perish? And he stood up and he calmed the waters. He calmed the wind, and everything just became still. Just as God, when he stood up before the earth when it was a void, just water and darkness, and he spoke and said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Things that we would generally consider as being, without life, like mountains, mountain ranges. I mean, the mountain ranges are rock and formations of earth, and there's no life there. And yet, the mountains saw thee, O Lord, and they trembled. The mountains trembled at the presence of the Lord God Almighty. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep uttered his voice and lifted up his hands on high. The very presence, everything in the vicinity of God, everything in the presence of God, whether it has life as we know it or not, bows and trembles before his glory, bows and trembles before his might. The mountains tremble as the Lord passes by. The very deep of the water is as if it speaks and lifts its hands on high in the presence of the Lord. Whew. God bless.